You're listening to Turfs Up Radio. I'm going to be your host for the next 2 hours. My name is Matt, the Grass Factor Martin. Big shout out to everybody tuning in today. We're going to have us a good little show. It's Monday. It's Manic Monday. That means it's time for Pick the Doc's Brain. Couple other things. If you have questions for Pick the Doc's Brain, I'll give you a couple ways. If you want, I've got this stream. And actually now on Twitch, too. You can go to twitch.tv/The Factor. See it there. Of course, you can go to youtube.com/C/The Factor. And for those of you listening around at the house, say you need to be mobile. I need to be mobile. I need my hands free. Real simple. Log in over at turfsupradio.com. You can listen there, or head to your favorite app store, whichever it may be, and download the Turfs Up Radio app. And you can carry it with you in your pocket all day long. How about Zim Apples? Like I said, on the flip side, the other piece of this is it's Pick the Doc's Brain, so that means we're here to answer questions. We're going to do the best of our ability. Well, I tell you who's going to do the best of their ability, and that's going to be Ray, the GreenDoc of Hawaii. Ray is a turf grass professional out there, and boy, we have a good time with it whenever he's on. If you missed the show last Friday, we were controversial. We were talking about use case scenarios for humic acid, and we're drawing the conclusion there. And I think the way I can kind of summarize that was that there's nothing wrong with humic acid at all, but there are specific instances where it is going to shine more than it's not. So it's not necessarily a cure-all, that if you're just looking for something to do, it may not always be the best thing to just reach for and do. So we try to apply a little bit of science to it so everybody can wrap their brain around what the actual benefits are. So that way when you're out in the field, you can make sure you are getting the absolute best bang for your buck. Because remember, at the end of the day, as Ray taught us, IPM. I pay materials. And when you're paying for materials, especially in the professional sense, one thing you can run into is that it adds up quick. So just wanted to give that as an option. Again, not saying it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I know I didn't get really a whole lot of hate with this one like I did on Monday. Monday, I kind of got some pretty significant pushback. Friday seemed to do a little better. For the people who commented and made the recommendation that we just get to the point, I'm sorry. You're listening to the wrong show if you think we're just going to get to the point. What we're actually attempting to do is provide some sort of scientific basis to allow you to make the best decision possible. I'm not here to tell you what you should do. For everybody that got to experience those theoretical classes in college and school, and you were so mad at it, and you're like, man, when is this ever going to be beneficial to me? Well, it's kind of the same thing. You could teach a man to fish, or you could provide him fish. You see what I'm saying? That's my big thing in this whole fight. I want to teach you the specific scenarios so that way you can make these decisions while you're out in the field. Because at the end of the day, and I stress it wholeheartedly, at the end of the day, what's most important is that together as an industry, we elevate, we lift, we become masters of our trade. And the reason why is because we're only as strong as our weakest link. And you have to remember, Lawn care in and of itself right now is not shown in the most positive light. So if we can further our education, if we can further our ability, it's something we get to take to the marketplace, that when they come down hard on us, we can show them, no, look how far we've taken our knowledge, collectively and as a group. And to me, that's most important. That's extremely important. So there we go. Kind of got that out of the way. I think that was fine. It was all just some good stuff said there. Man, you hear that? Every time I hear some good bluesy guitar come in like that, I think of old Jordan Farmer out there in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. Tearing up whatever engine he's working on. He's got some 4,000 horsepower engine he's going to be doing today. Shoo! John Falcon had a good joke here. He said, what was this? If you get right to the point, then you wouldn't have a show. And you know what? You're right. Listen, John, I can guarantee you that of all the people you know, nobody enjoys hearing themselves speak more than I do. It's not exactly easy to jump on here and just pound out 2 hours, 3-4 times a week, 7 times a week, 6 times a week. It's a struggle. It's a bit of a stretch, and you have to be real comfortable with yourself. And if you're going to be saying, if you're going to attempt to undergo something like that, you got to be a little bit weird. And I've got to say, there's certain metrics I get to check off, and part of that is, well, one thing's for damn sure, I'm a little bit weird. So it's kind of a give and take, right? And part of this is entertainment. I don't think I've ever been shy about saying that. There's definitely an entertainment aspect of this, because I want you to come back. If you weren't coming back, then I'm not doing my job well. Kind of another piece of this. Everybody's going to have to forgive me. I slept maybe, I don't know. My wife, she got on to me when she was going to bed, and she was like, listen, you promised me you get at least 3 hours of sleep tonight. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll get 3 hours. That's no problem. Well, I barely made it. I think I tried to go to bed sometime around 2 o'clock, and then, boy, you start checking emails, and it is not. It's getting kind of intense. And then before you know it, it's 6, and you got to be at the accountant's in the office. What's up, Chips and Guac? I owe you a phone call, man. I promise I'm going to get there. I'm just super overwhelmed right now. Super overwhelmed. As soon as the moment I get a little bit of clarity, I'll get out there. Well, we got Chris. What? That's French for speed, and that's French for speed. What? How about them apples? Something like that. We had another comment here, is that we come back for Ray. That's a good point, too. Listen, I can drone on and on for 2 hours, but really when it comes to actually cranking out content, let's be real. Let's be real. We all know who the heavy hitter is. I think we all do. Let's see, a couple more pieces. John Falcon also said, do you need me to send you emails? I can make sure you never want to look at your inbox again. No, I'm good on that, because, really for the most part, it induces anxiety when I look at my inbox as it is. So, by all means, I do not need you to compound the situation at hand, John. I love you, buddy. I promise I do. But let's not get a little too, let's not take things a little too far, if you know what I mean. Chris Voss said he's going to give me some clarity. Look at it. What is that? What is that emoji? You sent me a smoking emoji. Like, I don't know where this is going. It's making me uncomfortable. It's making me nervous. I don't know what's going on over there, but that's
Hell yeah!
I knew it was coming, so I was getting quiet, so I'd scare everybody. All right, real quick, I got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll just continue on, and we'll get, and also when we come back, that reminds me, what do I always need to do every Monday when I get this going? I've got to make sure I've got everything ported through my board correctly so I'm not making a series of mistakes and foolishness right here on air. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done. Then I'm going to take a break. We got Connor Ward in here. What are you doing over there? Connor Ward, the guy with my most favorite Canadian accent I've ever had, without a doubt. It was kind of weird because he's in Utah too, but I'm telling you, when you hear Connor's accent, one, it's charming. And I got to say, I'm partial to Southern accents because I've never really left the South, but Connor has a very charming accent. In my opinion, I really don't know any Canadians, but in my opinion, that is it. When I hear someone from Canada, that's how I hear them speak in my head before I ever hear them talk. And so I'm convinced Connor Ward. This accent. Okay, I'm taking a break. When we come back, we'll get on with Pick the Dog's Brain.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turf's Up Radio.
Hump day?
We have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hot place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
Hey, landscape pros, are you tired of digging through rocks and roots and breaking shovels in the process? Then it's time you checked out the Geo Ripper 616. It's a landscaper's dream with the Makita 6 Series 2-cycle engine producing over 4 horsepower of raw performance. The 616 digs deep in up to 16 inches of the toughest soils. Lighting, landscape, and irrigation contractors already love this improved lightweight trencher with its ability to get in and get out faster, easier, and with less ground disturbance. And you will too. This redesigned Geo Ripper 616 comes with 2 heavy-duty digging chains and a whole mess of helpful extras. To learn more about the Geo Ripper and how it can help you out in the field, visit georipper.com today.
Where's Ryan Knorr when you need him? This is something he and I would be listening to. I'd be hearing dreams. I'd be hearing stories about when he was in this band in high school, and I'd be the fangirl. Be like, oh, really? Tell me more. Tell me more, Ryan. Yes! All right, let's get this on the road. We've got Ray on the line. Ray, are you there, good sir?
I am here.
Yay! How was your weekend? Did you get accosted at all?
Not at all this weekend. I mean, I was like literally looking over my shoulder, or basically I jumped every time I heard something outside. I thought the mafia would get me.
I know. I was a little on edge too. I kept the gap by my side just in case, but turns out it was actually just a pretty peaceful, normal weekend for me. Nothing out of the normal. So I guess we're in the clear at this point.
Yeah, I mean, have you gotten any hate emails or hate messages?
Actually, believe it or not, no. And we did have some questions come in today that I thought we could go over. These are good pick the doc brain questions, and some have been kind of repeated before, but I figured what the fire, we'll go ahead and discuss them again. And but really, there was not a lot of there was a lot of support, Ray. And a lot of people, just reaching out to say, hey, I may need a little bit of clarification based on my soil test here. Is it a good option for me or is it not a good option? And then other people saying, thank you for the honesty and just, being transparent with everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm after. I'm after being totally honest and transparent and, unbiased, basically. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, me too. Me too. The truth shall set you free, so they say, or whatever the phrase may be. And sometimes I feel, and this is terrible that I even have to admit this, but sometimes I feel trapped because I am a manufacturer. I have to be careful what I say, and then at a certain point, Ray, I just hit critical mass where I can't take on anymore, and it's just I gotta get it all out. And what a better way than to bring on a neutral party and just have an open and honest dialogue and discussion about it. And let the chips lie wherever they may. There's no real agenda, and this one's actually kind of easy for me to talk about because I'm not involved with it in any way. And I do have significant experience with it in the past too. So it's kind of a great smorgasbord and melding of ideas that just get talked about in a very, very honest and open way.
Right. I mean, that's basically what I'm after, is just be honest. Don't try to sell anything in particular. And I know I've never really been, quote unquote, sold anything, at least not by people trying to make me buy nickel in it. The real honest vendors, like I got to meet the fellows from, say, heaters and even growth products, and at no time were those guys trying to sell me snake oil. Never.
Yeah, and when you think about it, and you look at the product line, I mean, you look at what Peters does. I mean, it's one of those things that, and this is what I would love. I would love for everybody to be able to take a step back, look at a product like Peters, take a look at the label, and understand the power you get out of that product.
Right. And, you made an interesting comment the other day on the show, in that you said no one in your town takes you seriously if you talk about 111 type fertilizers.
Yep, that's it's a dirty word.
Okay. Well, funny thing is that here in Hawaii, you talk about anything like, say, a turf type fertilizer, they laugh at you. They say, you don't know what you're doing. You're just buying the Scots or whatever, or Vigor or whatever from the big box store.
You get a lot of it, and another one you mentioned there was growth products, and that's a really good one as well too. You talk about a product line from a company. I mean, they really cover the gamut as far as what's available.
Right. I mean, they cover the gamut, and I remember working with this product called Essential Plus.
Yeah. I bought some because of you.
Right. And the way that was sold to me is he told me, you stack this on top of your NPK and you use it to relieve adverse growth conditions and stress in plants and grass that is not doing well. But he said, at no time do you think that your Essential Plus is going to be some kind of a magic in the bottle that can replace fertilizer. He says, don't use it like that. I don't want to hear about it. I mean, that's my, I guess my rep, Keith, he basically told me, don't try to use Essential Plus instead of fertilizer. So there,
yeah,
put that one to bed.
Let's see. Let's just go ahead and jump into this. And Mr. Sandoval had a question, and he said, "Gentlemen, what?" Whoa, hang on. I messed up something. I don't know if my there we go. Gentlemen, what do you suggest I use to eliminate Bermuda grass in my 100% Kentucky bluegrass? It's a big pain in my rear.
He's got several options, actually. Several. First option is, of course, Acclaim and Triclopyr. And you know how everybody is always talking about using Fusilade?
Yes.
Here's a big warning to everybody. Do not use Fusilade or Fluazethop in any form unless you have the following turf grasses, which are tall fescue, fine fescue, or zoysia. Please don't do it, because if you do, you are probably going to soak your lawn.
Fluazethop is one of those that it is designed to control grassy weeds, and it is a little bit of it's with high reward comes great risk.
Yeah, in other words, it is a very hot application, and so in many cases, that is where I would rather turn people towards Acclaim Extra, because their margin of safety is a lot higher with Acclaim.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Acclaim is one of those. Are there any temperature restrictions for Acclaim either, Ray?
Actually, no, because Acclaim is reasonably safe to most turf grasses, provided you follow the label rates and instructions. And furthermore, it is also usable on, I believe, even mixes containing ryegrass. So if you have a cool season mix consisting partially of ryegrass, you can use Acclaim. Please don't try to use Fusilade.
What about Pilex on Kentucky bluegrass? Any real risks there?
None, but your reward is also not that great if you are not combining your Pilex with Triclopyr and or Acclaim, because Pilex by itself, I told you a long time ago that we actually use Pilex here in Hawaii to control herbicide-resistant goosegrass in Bermuda.
Yes.
We actually use it. So what that tells me is that I don't count on Pilex to do anything more than temporarily bleach out Bermuda unless you get your rates rather high and you keep after it. But whereas if you combine it with something like Acclaim, you can get substantial control in as little as 1 to 2 applications.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah. And I noticed that Acclaim is the forgotten herbicide.
A claim is now, I still know some people, particularly in golf, they are using it as kind of a catch-all, especially on greens. That, you know, in lieu of going out with the pre-emergent, they'll use a claim as their post-emergent and make, you know, 2-3 applications a year with it.
And you know why? It's because at reduced rates, Acclaim has a bent grass label.
Yes.
Yes. You know, you turn down your rate a bit and you can't apply it to a bent grass green, for example. That's how selective it is. And yet at the same time, Acclaim also catches the grassy weeds like crabgrass and goosegrass.
Yeah, that's the big advantage there, is that you have kinda a similar spectrum of control that you get out of fluazepop, but a bit more tolerance among your different turf species, except for the main ones, except for the known warm season grass issue with Bermuda grass. It will take out Bermuda.
Right. Although, you know, the problem is that what I hear from people is that Acclaim is not as hot on Bermuda as they'd like it to be. But at the same time, I just told you the way to get out of that is you synergize the mixture with something like, say, a little bit of triclopyr, a little bit of Pilex, and now you have something.
Without a
doubt. Now
doubt.
you have something. Yeah, now you got something. And if I ever wanted to figure out a catch-all treatment for cool season grasses, it would be Acclaim, triclopyr, and Pilex. That's what I would use as a general weed control in cool season turf grass, because I pick up the grassy weeds and the broadleaf weeds all at the same time.
Ray, real quick, I got to take a break, and when we come back, let's get into some torpedo grass talk, because I know that one there can make people a little sensitive. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turfs Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of the Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's the Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Turfs Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turfs Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com.
Playing the best music.
Hands down and dirty. Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up.
Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
All right, we're back. Okay. All right, Ray. So I warned you before we went to the break. We were talking about the one, the only, the one that just is really baffling. We're going to talk about torpedo grass, but we're going to talk about it in a very specific instance. Everybody who's got torpedo grass knows you can run and grab your quinclorac and go after it if you got your Bermuda grass or whatever the case may be. But for those people that are in Florida that have St. Augustine and are dealing with torpedo grass, in this particular instance right here, Mr. Julio said to me, he said, what control can I use for torpedo grass in St. Augustine? I've been brushing glyphosate, and even as careful as I can be, I'm still killing off some of my St. Augustine. Any help would be appreciated.
Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for torpedo grass that is selective. In fact, if I were dealing with torpedo grass, in the case of St. Augustine, the only advice I can offer is you had better be killing out that area with a lot more than just plain old glyphosate. In other words, if somebody has an infestation by a perennial deep-rooted grass, I literally want to see them throwing in things like Pilex or Tenacity and Fusillade with their Roundup, and using that with the objective that absolutely everything is going to die in that area, because glyphosate by itself is actually not an impressive product when I'm talking about rhizomatous or stoloniferous grassy weeds. It's very good on bunch-type grasses, but it is not a sure performer on stoloniferous grasses.
Yeah,
or rhizomatous grasses.
You know, we think about an easy thing to relate to would be the effect on Johnson grass. For how many people have tried to control Johnson grass with glyphosate, only to become so frustrated with the fact that they're never really getting that good of control. And they start scratching their head and they're saying, I don't understand. It's just Johnson grass. And I'm spraying it with Roundup even. I can't even kill it with Roundup. Like, well, you know, you're talking about a grass type that can be extremely rhizomatic and is ultimately just difficult to kill because of it. Kind of the same deal, except I would even argue in some instances, torpedo grass would be exceptionally harder to kill because of how much of a root mass that weed can develop.
Yes, it's just an incredible root mass, and therefore, when I'm talking about something like that, to me, what I always say and what I always tell people, the slower I kill it, the better. And that's why what's used is my alternate grassy weed herbicides. Like, that's what I love Cefoxidin for. That's what I love Fluazepop or Fusillade for, is going after rhizomatous grasses.
Or I don't know if you know the answer to this, and I don't know it either. I'm just thinking about the appearance of the root system of torpedo grass. Is it a nitrogen fixing weed?
It could be. It could well be a nitrogen fixer, and I can tell you that if I wanted to eradicate torpedo grass, what I'd actually do is till up the area that it's in, throw some 111 on it, start irrigating it, make all the rhizomes send up green leaf tissue, and then bomb it with something like Cefoxidin or Fusillade. And keep on doing it until no more comes up.
Yeah, and that's the second piece of it too, is that you're not going to accomplish this in just a single application. It's going to be a multi-application approach.
Right. And yes, I've caught hell from people because I make them wait before I will install their sprigs or their plugs. I make people wait, Matt. And they say, oh, but the other guy wanted to, put my lawn in 1 week or less. And again, what I say is that fellow's a moron because he then has no plan for dealing with all of the weeds that are going to come up after he does that.
Yeah, and that sometimes can be a difficult thing to explain, and you've got to level with the customer and say, listen, I can come out here and spray this with glyphosate and make you think everything is good to go. And then I can sell you the side, I can install you the side. And then you're going to call me back the next year and you're going to ask me to do it all over again. And then you call me back the next year and I'll have to do it all over again. It's a never-ending cycle of madness is what you end up procuring by just opting to take the quick way out. When in reality, when you're dealing with a weed as violent and as vigorous and as tenacious as torpedo grass, you have to be as equally aggressive to get any kind of appropriate level of control to be able to renovate the area.
That is totally right. You are going to need to basically be as slow and brutal as the torpedo grass or whatever it is. You got to be brutal. And to me, even glyphosate is too fast of a kill. Glyphosate is too fast. It browns out the foliage in about a week. That's too fast. I look at something like cefoxidin, and that literally takes 2 to 3 weeks before I even see symptoms on the foliage. And in that time, it's translocating throughout that rhizomatous system.
Yeah, that's a long time it has to move throughout the plant. And it's kind of like if anybody's ever used diquat in combination with glyphosate, you see that sometimes in certain instances you may be scratching or banging your head against a wall because the weeds seem to come back exceptionally fast, and a lot of times that problem is that you've scorched off the actual foliage without getting enough systemic action down to the root system to keep that plant from coming back.
Very, very true. And I still remember my bad experience using Quick Pro. I tried it out on a lawn renovation job in lieu of my normal, slow kill consisting of, say, triclopyr, Fusilade, and Roundup. And what happened is the weeds literally grew back as bad as or worse than when I started. And I just was so disappointed, and not surprising because my grandfather once told me a long time ago, do not ever think you're doing anything smart by combining a quat with Roundup. Grandpa was right. Grandpa was right. He told me, don't ever think you're doing anything smart by combining a quat with Roundup, because he said that fast burn, everything did in one day herbicide is going to kill the leaves before the Roundup has time to actually work. And he knew that, and he figured that out back in the 1980s.
That's pretty interesting, and also back in the 80s too. I'd say he had a little more access to the old paraquat as well as the old diquat. I'm just guessing.
Oh yeah, he had what they call ortho paraquat CL. That's no longer made. That's no longer made.
Yeah, what was the LD50 on that?
Let's see, 50 milligrams per kilogram. Irreversible and fatal lung damage.
Yikes!
Due to poisoning. Yeah. Well, hey, diquat is not much better because 200 milligrams per kilogram will give you irreversible kidney and liver damage.
Yikes!
Yeah. So here's the thing: if you're talking about trying to remove torpedo grass, I would look at a prolonged fallow rather than trying to do it with just glyphosate, and also using an alternate chemistry that is active on grasses and is more systemic in grasses, such as fluazepop or cefoxidin.
Ray, let's kind of transition the conversation from torpedo grass in St. Augustine over to torpedo grass in Bermuda. And Aldo actually asks, is torpedo grass not phased by methylfuron methyl?
Nope, because methylfuron methyl, as far as I know, is only toxic to bahia grasses, crabgrass, and cool season grasses, with the exception of fine fescue and Kentucky bluegrass. Other warm season grassy weeds are unfazed. So save your methylfuron for something else.
Yeah, just not that effective. I can't say I've intentionally sprayed it for that purpose, but I've sprayed plenty of methylfuron methyl in lawns that had bahia grass with no effect, and especially going out early with it and hoping you'll catch something on it with it being small. So, unfortunately, it's just one of the ones that doesn't do real well on it. But there are options in Bermuda grass, and what did those look like, Ray?
Okay, if you want to do torpedo grass, you got quinclorac, you got Celsius, you have the new one called Manuscript, and Manuscript becomes worth it if you're dealing with a lot of torpedo grass. And the reason why is because the labeling for Manuscript allows you to spot spray an effective rate of that Manuscript product to the point where you can substantially control the torpedo grass, and the active ingredient in the Manuscript is very closely related to, say, fluazepop.
Yeah, it's same mode of action, isn't it?
Same mode of action. So basically what you're doing to that torpedo grass is you are systemically poisoning it with the Manuscript. And I've heard of some people say, and in fact it's on the label, and I hate that they put it on the damn label, you can use Dismiss NXT on goosegrass, and not on goosegrass, but on torpedo. But you know what that's doing?
You're just burning it?
That's just providing you with a quick foliar burn, and I don't see the benefit of a foliar burn unless you're combining it with something that's more soil active, like, say, Monument and or Celsius.
What about Q4?
I don't think there's enough quinclorac in the Q4, and furthermore, why are you exposing your Bermuda to 2,4-D ester in the middle of summer?
Yeah, that would be.
That's just stressful for the Bermuda. Yeah, that's just stressful in the Bermuda, because Q4, in this case, you'd be applying it at literally the wrong time of the year. Am I right?
Yeah. There is a temperature restriction on it. I can't recall what it is, but that would not be. And this is where people get sucked into it, because Q4 kind of came along at the same time Celsius did, so it was promoted as a product to use in the summer for grassy weed control, because it's got a little bit of sulfentrazone. It'll burn your sedges, not kill them. It's got a little bit of quinclorac. It'll burn your crabgrass, not kill it. And it's good on broadleaf weeds because you've got a combination of quinclorac and 2,4-D in it. So in reality, it's a great broadleaf weed control. It's very poor as a grassy weed control. And people love it because they go out and they spray it and it burns whatever it is they spray, and they feel like they've reached a certain level of success. But I hate to tell people that if you feel like you've met a level of success using Q4, you really don't know how successful you could be. You don't really understand what success actually is in terms of actually providing control.
That's right, because the Q4 does not have enough sulfentrazone or even quinchlorat to provide you with substantive weed control. There's not enough active ingredient going down to really do the job, versus if you were to apply your quinchlorat at the right time by itself, or maybe with a little bit of a, tenacity kicker when you're dealing with cool season grasses, then you're talking about some pretty impressive weed control.
Yes.
And so Q4 to me, I'll tell you actually what Q4 was. You know what Q4 was created for?
Oh, what's that?
That was created to hopefully replace the old Trimec Plus.
Yeah, and I feel like it was also kind of an answer to the Solitaire product too, because Solitaire came out right before it did, and then you saw Q4 right in behind it.
Actually, the way I look at it is Q4 came around right as PBI Gordon was ordered to stop selling Trimec Plus.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Trimec Plus was a PBI Gordon product. I completely forgot.
Yeah. And in my time, Trimec Plus became the base for one of my tank mixes on Zoysia or Bermuda that had imazaquin and simazine.
Ray, real quick, I got to take a break, and when we come back, we've got a question here. We're going to talk about fertilizer, and specifically we're talking about potassium here in this situation. We're going to be talking about potassium with chlorine versus potassium with sulfur. So bear with me real quick, and when we come back, let's just dive right on into it. You're listening to Turfs Up Radio. Check us out at turfsupradio.com. Remember, this is the only radio station dedicated to an entire industry. That is the green industry. This is the drive home. This is Pick the Doc's Brain. More after the break.
Hey, Turfs Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turfs Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com. Hey, Green Industry Pros, are you new to Turfs Up Radio and want to learn more? Then plug in your earphones and keep listening, because Turfs Up Radio invites you to listen while you work. Our 24/7 live radio platform keeps you up to date, bringing you new tips and interviews from pros like you who want to elevate and educate the green industry. Can't make it to industry shows or events? Don't worry, Turfs Up Radio will be there bringing you live coverage, getting you in on the action. So keep listening to Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of the Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's the Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with the Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turfs Up Radio.
Hump day?
Do we have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hot place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Tall heels, black dress, breaking hearts, and you know it. But all the boys just think they've
right, Ray. All right. So, Mr. Thomas here, he asks, fertilizer with chlorine versus fertilizer with sulfur. Any other options, I guess? And so I guess the question to you, Ray, is when you're trying to distinguish between the two, what exactly are you looking for? And a lot of times when we see that sulfur option, when we see sulfur, does that mean we're actually getting elemental sulfur with this? Are we lowering the pH when we're applying a fertilizer with sulfur on the bag?
Only if you are applying ammonium sulfate specifically, because when you are applying, say, magnesium sulfate or even potassium sulfate, you are not getting that pH lowering effect because the sulfate ion without a corresponding hydrogen ion is neutral. The reason why you get acidification from ammonium sulfate is because in the soil, that ammonium sulfate then dissociates into free ammonia, and the hydrogen that is released from the ammonium ion then is free to combine with the sulfate ion to form our good friend sulfuric acid. Potassium sulfate doesn't have hydrogen ions to do that reaction.
Yeah, you get those free hydrogens coming off from that ammonium. You know, you're going to get all kinds of weirdness too, and eventually it's going to become NO3, and that hydrogen has to go somewhere, and that hydrogen
right.
is where you start to run into soil acidity. So, you know, Mr. Thomas, I think that's one of the big misconceptions when people look at a bag of fertilizer and they see a bunch of sulfur in it. They're like, well, I don't want to apply this. I've got low pH. Like, well, hang on. Let's actually take a look at the sources that are in there. And you may see potassium sulfate, 0050 with 17% sulfur. You may see ferrous sulfate, which is going to be 000, 30% iron, with, I can't remember if it's 14% sulfur or whatever the case may be. And then as you start blending those together, you know, you get a balanced out level of sulfur that's going to be in the bag, but that is sulfate. That is not elemental sulfur, which converts into sulfuric acid, which affects your soil pH. This is sulfate, SO4, and is used by the plant as sulfate. Because what not a lot of people know is that sulfur is actually used at a pretty high rate compared to NP and K within the plant.
Correct. And in a lot of cases, because of that push towards slow-release urea as nitrogen, you can even run into the issue of turfgrass running out of sulfate to use in its own nutrition because, by the way, folks, sulfate is part of what the plant needs to create amino acids, or literally protein, for its own health and growth. So when you just deprive a plant of sulfate, you're basically shorting it an essential element. Yeah, so there's
one of my favorite things to read is about is kind of an old ammonium sulfate study where they correlated that higher sulfate tissue levels also corresponded with higher iron and manganese tissue levels. And so when you're talking about iron and manganese tissue levels, you're talking about darker green grass. That goes along with it. So, you know, kind of a nice little punch there.
Yes, and that's where I often see a differential in the kind of green that I get from urea versus the kind of green that I can get from a moderate amount of ammonium sulfate. There's a difference in color. And you talk about getting more green, but at the same time, that nicer color is not accompanied by surge growth. Because, for example, I don't like slow release urea on my lawns because what that usually means is grass that is kind of plasticky, yellowy green, but then it's growing like hell. I hate it.
You know, Ray, and this kind of will take us into the next question here. Kumo 801 said, how far will elemental sulfur penetrate clay soil? Will it only affect the pH in the first few inches? That's actually a good question.
Actually, elemental sulfur, provided you can get it to react in the soil, will penetrate actually fairly deeply. There is no limit to how deep it can penetrate. So if you got elemental sulfur down and you have enough water to get it down, what's going to happen is that acidity front is going to progressively go down deeper and deeper and deeper. However, also know that elemental sulfur is lousy as a soil acidifier if your soil pH is over pH 7. It's lousy. And it doesn't start to work unless you are doing something to also destroy excessive carbonates in that soil immediately, aside from that sulfobacter reaction in the soil that is turning the elemental sulfur into sulfuric acid in situ.
You know, and I think, Kumo, this is kind of an easy way to think about it is also when you're applying an acid like that to the soil, it's only going to run as deep as the buffering capacity of your soil will allow it to. Because you have to remember, if you have a high pH soil, you've got a lot of material there that is working to neutralize that acid you applied. And eventually, the amount of stored buffering capacity in your soil will exceed the amount of elemental sulfur, which converts into sulfuric acid. So will exceed the amount of sulfuric acid you applied, therefore you lose it. How far deep does it going to go before it gets there? Well, it's hard to say. That may be something you have to look at, you know, your buffer pH, or try and, you know, figure out where exactly that threshold is. Even then, it's not really going to give you a whole lot of information as far as how deep that ends up going. So your better bet, just like Ray was touching on here, is, Ray, what's kind of your 1-2 punch to go after? And here's a follow-up statement right here. Said, my soil was an 8.3, and I've only managed to get it to just under an 8 after applying 30 pounds per 1,000 over 18 months.
Okay, and that is a demonstration of exactly what you were talking about, Matt. And in his case, the way I would attack it is I would then be applying citric acid drenches every 30 days at the rate of 2 pounds of citric acid per 1,000 square foot per month of growing season. And what that is going to do is that is going to take your excessive carbonates and your excessive calcium out of the soil. That's going to remove it.
Yeah, that's going to put a pretty immediate, significant dent in that buffering capacity of your soil to allow that sulfuric acid a little more time to exist in the soil, and also to work itself a little bit deeper as well, too.
Right. Because by itself, I know that the agronomists tell you, do not think you're going to lower your soil pH with any amount of sulfur if your soil pH is, I think, over 7.5. They say give up, don't do it.
But it's not a lost cause, because you got the solution right here.
It isn't a hopeless situation, and if you feel like, you know, doing a Breaking Bad, the more severe one that's kind of like a once-a-year treatment would be a gallon of 95% sulfuric acid per 1,000 square foot.
And that's not for the faint of heart. I wouldn't recommend that to just anybody. You know, maybe if you're a trained chemist with all kinds of experience handling material.
Reactive materials. Yeah, you know. only if you understand what 95% sulfuric acid can do. Then I'd recommend it. But then for your average, consumer or even commercial lawn care applicator, I would recommend that they stick with the citric acid instead.
Yeah.
It's safer.
Way safer. They both do need to be watered in pretty much immediately. But at the same time, just want to stress there, get it watered in and use it as a supplement to your elemental sulfur, and only go the H2SO4 part until you really, really are in a bad situation.
Yes. And even if you are in a terrible situation, I still recommend that the average person max out their citric application before they even think of doing anything else.
Ray, what kind of PPE would be required to make any sort of sulfuric acid application?
Liquid-proof apron, rubber boots, face shield, rubber gloves, long sleeves, because you don't want this in your eyes or on your skin at all. And you don't even want it like on your clothing, because it will disintegrate most fibers.
Not for the faint of heart. So telling no, your children or dogs could not play in the yard after application.
Not until it's watered in. Not until it's watered in. I mean, and the thing is that even like, I know a lot of these applications, like even your elemental sulfur, that is not going to give you the most return on investment unless you have a way of keeping that area adequately hydrated after application.
Yeah, because that could definitely smoke out some grass there pretty quick, huh?
Oh yeah, I've heard from I think somebody on the lawn forum, I forgot who told me about when he applied some citric acid in solution and didn't turn on the irrigation for that zone, and he basically torched his centipede grass.
Not a good scenario.
And I was so sad because under normal circumstances, and when you water it in, that centipede would be eating up the high acidity from the citric acid application. It would be thriving at that point.
Well, you know what? In my opinion, Ray, that would be the best thing that ever happened to me, because then I get to convert to a nice, friendly, respectable turf grass like Bermuda in lieu of the frickin' centipede.
And the fact that he was even fooling with citric acid tells me that centipede grass had no earthly business even growing there or being there, because the soil was not acid enough for it.
That's the other part too. Ray, real quick, I've got to take a break. When we come back, let's see where the conversation takes us next. We got a question here about how soon after seeding can we get going on some PGRs. I think that'd be a good one for you. All right, hang on.
Yeah.
Give me just a second here. We're gonna go pay some bills and do whatever it is we got to do over here on the radio side of things, and then we'll get after it. If you don't know, I'm here to tell you, you're listening to Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station. Where's Ryan? All right, we'll be right back after this.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
Hey, landscape pros, are you tired of digging through rocks and roots and breaking shovels in the process? Then it's time you checked out the Geo Ripper 616. It's a landscaper's dream with the Makita 6 Series 2-cycle engine producing over 4 horsepower of raw performance. The 616 digs deep in up to 16 inches of the toughest soils. Lighting, landscape, and irrigation contractors already love this improved lightweight trencher with its ability to get in and get out faster, easier, and with less ground disturbance. And you will too. This redesigned Geo Ripper 616 comes with 2 heavy-duty digging chains and a whole mess of helpful extras. To learn more about the Geo Ripper and how it can help you out in the field, visit georipper.com today.
Hey, Turfs Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turfs Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com.
We're back! All right, we're back. We're back. Ray, Alex brought this topic to me, so he was like, so the fertilizer with chlorine is better? So real quick, can we touch on fertilizer with chlorine and whether or not you would recommend it?
I actually normally do not recommend fertilizers with chlorine because chlorine is, in fact, an essential element for plant growth, except the amount needed by a plant is in microgram quantities, not in percent quantities. And depending on your soil type, you may run into an issue where your soil retains that chloride, ion and accumulates toxic levels. So I would be very careful. In fact, my preferred, salts as far as fertilizers go are I will apply sulfates all day long. I will apply nitrates all day long, but I will watch the chloride content in my fertilizer very carefully.
Yeah, and as a general rule of thumb, chloride-based fertilizers are normally of the highest salt index products that you can apply. And it's not to say that they'll always cause problems. It's just you start to run into the potential for them causing problems very quickly. Remember, in the rest of the world, chlorides are generally used as ice melt. And that's not to say that, there are definitely some fertilizers too, straight up fertilizers that are used as ice melt. But generally speaking, chlorides you can associate with ice melts, very high salt index, which if you're not careful, if you don't time it right, if you don't irrigate it right, or if you don't have adequate rain, can cause you serious problems. All right, Ray, let's see here. It seemed like there was something I was going to get into. Oh, okay, here it is. Mr. Johan said, how soon after germination of cool season grass can you apply a PGR like anew?
I would probably wait till at least my 3rd or 4th mowing. I'd wait a while because along with that reduction of vertical growth, you do have some degree of root and tiller inhibition as well. Do not get the idea that you get a free lunch where you can shut down the vertical growth completely and still have 100% of your root and tiller development. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yep, I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions is when to start putting it on a PGR program. And here's the second piece of it is really in the fall with cool season grass, your rate of growth has slowed so much that, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to put down a PGR in the fall. I would wait until the next late winter, early spring, as you start moving into that big April flush you get. That's when I would start it. Go ahead and let all the maturity develop as you possibly can. In fact, I would even tell you cut it as few times as possible over winter. Let it get a little meaty. Yeah. Let it get a little maturation. Let it get established in a big-ass root system. Then as you gear up for spring, then go ham with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And in fact, during the fall establishment, true or false, what you want to be doing with that newly seeded cool season area is giving it, say, a 1-1-1 that has a lot of ammonium-based nitrogen in it in the fall so that come springtime, that ammonium is still in the soil and the grass can feed on it.
There you go.
You know, I mean, that I would not be looking at shutting down or inhibiting growth. In fact, I would be looking at letting the grass grow up because the root system on your grass is closely correlated to how much top growth you have. Yeah, so if you're trying to, say, turn your cool season grass growing on dirt and growing on a very minimal and non-scientific, fertility program, for example, and you also want it to be ultra short, that's a dangerous game to be playing, actually.
We'll kind of use this to ping into the next one here. We're speaking of root systems and getting some development on it. All right, so the lawnmower said, I've seen my root strength go from improving to almost non-existent after this last infestation of moles. I've tried all the DIY protocols. Any suggestions?
Start trapping, either that or see if they'll take the poisoned peanuts. Because what you've also got going on is, when they tunnel, they're also damaging the root system of your grass too. So it's not a good thing for something to be under your lawn, undermining and tunneling under it, because then the tunnels become areas where your grass will dry out faster than the rest of the lawn. So I've heard of this particular cute product that has strychnine on peanuts, for example.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's for, field rodents. That's for field rodents.
The other thing I would check too, if you're seeing increased activity right now, is make sure you don't have any cutworms or sod web worms like that. Army worms are probably a little too high up, but cutworms sometimes will get down in there a little bit lower. That may come into the nose hairs of a mole and send them to it. And the other thing too is, also, try soap flush or anywhere where the good grass meets some of these mole hills. Pull it up and check and see if you do see a grub issue. As a general rule of thumb, just because you have moles doesn't mean you don't have grub worms, because they do eat other things in the soil, of course. But at the same time, it can be a signifier. It is possible, too, that you do have them. So I would just double and triple check. Take an area that's undisturbed, or if you notice any areas that are yellowing in any kind of way, and do a little digging and see if you do unpack any of it, or you see more to the story there. The other thing, too, is that I've seen a lot of pictures around right now of our fungus gnat larvae, and I don't know with 100% certainty that they may eat, fungus gnat larvae, but it's also another possibility. They're subsurface insects, and they may see it as a, giant, juicy meal ready for them. Some ideas.
Yes. And I know anytime you have the burrowing, creatures, everybody automatically blames, oh, I've got grubs. However, sometimes it might even be as simple as earthworms, but other times it may be an actual insect pest that needs addressing. And unfortunately, when I have that kind of an insect pest to address, my go-to actually becomes Dilox.
Dilox, the true and tried old method. Spread it, water it, and watch them die.
Right. And in my case, it gets drenched into the turf in a water solution that is acidified to pH 5.5. Because Dilox is extremely susceptible to hydrolysis, alkaline hydrolysis.
And for those of y'all listening at home, that means it could render it rather ineffective.
Right, which means that if your water pH is too high, or even if it's neutral at 7, that Dilox is literally breaking down, in some cases, faster than you can spray it out. Because I've never had a problem applying Dilox because I have adjuvants that can be added to the spray tank that knock my pH down to 5.5.
Ray, I'm going to kind of take you in the next direction here. And Mr. Berger said, would it be wise to blanket apply Speed Zone with the pre-emergent like Barricade to take care of existing and future cool season grassy weeds?
Actually, if you have an existing grassy weed problem, Speed Zone's not actually your best bet. Speed Zone's not your best bet, actually, because if anything, isn't it a little bit late in the year to be going after grassy weeds? Because I'm imagining that in a month or two, they're going to, go down from winter dormancy.
And kind of the other thing is, I'm not sure where Speed Zone gets a reputation as a grassy weed control. It's definitely not. It's primarily a broadleaf weed control. Now, there is some action you get on POA out of it. You'll get some discoloration and that fun stuff out of it. And I think you also get some slight action on goosegrass with it as well. But you're not getting just full out thorough kills out of that product on a lot of your grassy weeds. You may get some damage, and you got to remember there's carfentrazone in that tank as well. And carfentrazone is going to give you that discoloration that makes you feel good when you apply it, because all of a sudden, real quickly, 24 hours, 48 hours after application, you're like, wow, I'm starting to get some burn down here. But in actuality, that may be all you're getting is just a little bit of foliar burn down.
Yeah, you're just getting temporary burn down. And for me, I typically pair my Speed Zone with something like isoxaben, because my reason for applying something like Speed Zone is out of control broadleaf weeds. I don't use it for even goosegrass because I get the temporary burn down, but it's not anything that I would swear by, for controlling goosegrass. Absolutely. I mean, I use other things on goosegrass.
Yep. All right, Ray, real quick, I got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll get a little further into this. We got some tenacity questions, and it seemed like there was one more too. So bear with me. When we come back, we got more for Pick the Doc's brain. You're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, green industry pros, Turfs Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of the Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's the Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, green industry pros, are you new to Turfs Up Radio and want to learn more? Then plug in your earphones and keep listening, because Turfs Up Radio invites you to listen while you work. Our 24/7 live radio platform keeps you up to date, bringing you new tips and interviews from pros like you who want to elevate and educate the green industry. Can't make it to industry shows or events? Don't worry, Turfs Up Radio will be there bringing you live coverage, getting you in on the action. So keep listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station. Hey, Turfs Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turfs Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com.
Boy, that came in a little heavier than I anticipated. Although, is this your favorite band? This group is called Thor, and this sounds like a Thor song. All right. Okay, Ray, thanks for hanging out through the break there, and I thought we'd kind of move on here. Real quick, ZG commented, and I thought I'd kind of chime in here. He said, I want to know your thoughts on Anderson's Biochar. Have you researched it? As a matter of fact, I have, and they do not give any information about their Biochar. The only thing I've seen is that it potentially could be wood-sourced. I know nothing about the temperature that's been consistent. I've seen it at multiple temperatures depending on the source I look at. So it's hard for me to have an opinion on it if I don't know the source material and if I don't know the pyrolysis temperature. And the only thing I know outside of that is that it has not been co-composted. So immediately, in my experience with Biochar, I've got a long list of experience with Biochar. I'm not going to use it if I'm coming at it from a purely objective way. I've used enough raw Biochar over the years to know that is not my product for turf. Other people out there may want to use it for turf and may see a need for it. I've tried it in many different ways, and the only way I was able to have success with it was when I was top dressing it, so coring pretty aggressively, a sand-based field, applying it, and having to get pretty aggressive with the fertilizer on the back end, and then reaping the benefits on the back end. And I kind of got lucky there because we also had the trial with the trees going on at the same time. So I had a better understanding of what I was getting myself into. But now, knowing what I know now, I would never go back to just using a raw Biochar, especially as risky as it was for me in that particular scenario. So that's kind of my take on it, is that it's hard for me to really form an opinion because there's just not enough information out there about it. All right, Ray. So Kyle said, I laid out my first application of Tenacity a few days ago. How long before I should see the results? Crabgrass issue.
Well, you're going to start seeing your results between 7 and 14 days.
Yeah, and I remember, Ray, when I would go and I'd make all my first round of Pylex applications, and it never failed. 7 days later, I get a phone call, and it says, listen, it's been 7 days, and I'm not seeing anything out of this Pylex. And I had to tell people, I said, listen, be patient, because when it does start working, you're going to call me with the other answer and say, what in the world did you do? I've never seen so much snow in my yard before. And sure enough, without a doubt, somewhere around day 12 to day 14, sometimes maybe day 10, depending on if I gave it the 2-second methylated seed oil pour, or the crop oil concentrate pour, or the actual 0.6 ounces per gallon or whatever I was spraying at the time. It took a little time, but when it comes on, there ain't gonna be no denying it, Kyle. I mean, it comes with some thunder. It turns mighty bleached.
Yeah, and that is presuming that you don't have it with any kind of a kicker in it, because the kickers will delay your effect even more. But then that's a good thing, because when your effect is delayed, that means that your weed has time to take in and recirculate that active ingredient even more. So slow is not horrible when you're talking about herbicides.
Yeah, we look at some of the most powerful herbicides out there, we're talking about things that at 15 grams over an acre can cause some pretty elite levels of toxicity in weeds. And specifically, I'm talking about Monument. Not exactly known for being a speedy herbicide, but known for being very effective.
I think there are a couple of exceptions to that, in that, for example, I recently started using Celero.
Yeah.
Yeah? But what my customers are telling me is that after I do the Celero on their Nutsedge, they're seeing extreme yellowing and decline in the yellow Nutsedge, the purple Nutsedge, 10 days after application. And that is a speed record for me, because normally with my standards of, say, Certainty or Imazaquid, it's 2, 3, even 4 weeks later before I see anything. And Monument is similarly 2 to 3 weeks later as well.
Yeah, do you think it has to do with that, specifically with Celero, so mazosulfuron, do you think it has to do with that imidazolinone chain, why you're seeing kind of that thunderous oomph out the gate?
I suspect so. I think it's because that looking at that molecule, you've somehow combined, an imidazoline chain and a sulfonylurea chain all in one product, and with that combination, you get enhanced efficacy. You just get, it just is high efficacy. So that's not a bad product. But then what I'm saying is that on your average selective weed control overall, don't expect to see anything incredible until 14 days out. And you train people such that they don't expect it, because like what I literally tell people is, in most cases, if you see things turning colors or dying in less than 7 days, I hope you have the ability to just replace the turf quickly, because that was too hot of a mix. That was way too hot of a mix. I mean, that's how I look at it, because even when I use a sulfentrazone or carfentrazone kicker in my other products, I keep the rate low enough that I don't see effect until 7 days later. I keep the rate down.
Yeah, for sure. I can't remember where I was going to go with that, but yeah, without a doubt, you got to be careful when you're chasing speed like that. Ray, what about and this is kind of in the same Nutsedge field here. Lawn Care Monster said, do you think it's too late in the year to be using ortho for Nutsedge? They're saying they want to overseed, but they don't want to wait until October to do so. And I have no idea what the ortho product is. Do you?
I'll tell you what it is. That is sulfentrazone applied at approximately 4 ounces per acre, equivalent to a hose-in sprayer.
Yeah. Nope.
You know, that's I saw that product, and for a lot of people, it does a great job for them. However, I've also seen the reviews on it about how it's particularly unforgiving on cool season grasses. It scorches zoysia, and it's otherwise, you know, one of those things where just realize that you're dealing with sulfentrazone.
You know, I'm looking at the label right here, and I'm not seeing anything yet about a reseed interval, which is pretty frustrating because they make it very clear on the traditional sulfentrazone label about reseed interval. So that's kind of frustrating. Oh, wait, here it is. It's right here. Wait at least 4 weeks after treatment before reseeding, winter overseeding, or plugging lawns. Now, there are other options out there that are going to be way more tolerant of you going out with seed. So what are a couple of those options? They're going to be more forgiving when you're going to be doing some cool season seeding, right?
Actually, if I had to reseed soon after, my go-to would be something like, say, halosulfuron, specifically halosulfuron, because halosulfuron, out of all of the sulfonylurea, has the lowest effect on grasses compared to all of the other sulfonylurea herbicides. Halosulfuron is by far the safest to use at seeding or near seeding or immediately after seeding. I wouldn't use anything else.
Yep, that would be my recommendation right there too. Without a doubt, 100%. That is it.
That's it. And not, please don't use sulfentrazone, because I know sulfentrazone as a pre-emergent in field crops. That's what it's used for, actually, Matt.
Yes. Sulfentrazone can be rough.
Oh, yeah. Sulfentrazone is part of my Deny an Area to Nutsedge program. It's part of that program.
Ray, I had another question here. And how long until it's safe to reseed after applying a full rate of triclopyr?
I would give it 2 weeks. Because triclopyr is quickly broken down in the soil, but it does take a little time for that breakdown to happen.
Ray, I'm drawing a blank on what the trade name is for the triclopyr for turf. Turfline is what I'm thinking.
Turfline ester.
Yeah,
Turfline ester. Yeah.
And I'm going to see what the recommendation is on the label here, because I don't recall off memory. Do not reseed for 3 weeks after application. This precaution does not apply when Bermuda grass turf is overseeded with perennial ryegrass at a minimum reseeding rate of 400 pounds per acre. So if you're going to be seeding with anything other than perennial ryegrass at 400 pounds per acre, then wait 3 weeks is the recommendation at the label. As Ray said, could you get away with 2? Probably, without any real issue.
Yeah. And in actual practice, you don't need a lot of triclopyr to have the effect if you are using it on susceptible weeds. I mean, I've seen triclopyr really do a number on weeds at rates as low as, say, 1 pint of the concentrate per acre. I've seen it do quite a job on weeds.
Yeah, a pint per acre, especially as a tank mix companion there. I mean, that's a hellacious app.
Yeah, that's my wintertime app for zoysia. You know, I use triclopyr, lowest rate of sulfentazone, and monument. And that is the wintertime before it gets too hot cleanup spray.
Ray, real quick, let me check. In fact, let's see. I think I've got one more question here somewhere. Yes, here it is. Mixing quinclorac, propiconazole, and clearies in the same tank mix. Yay or nay?
Nay. Why are you doing that? I mean, why do people always want to apply 2 fungicides plus 2 herbicides all in the same tank mix when, first of all, here's why. You don't want to apply propiconazole with the appropriate surfactant that you need with the quinclorac. You don't want to do that. Secondly, when applying fungicides, my spray equipment is different because rather than applying 1 gallon per 1,000 square foot as a very coarse, low-pressure spray, I then am feeding the bloom at up to 100 psi and laying down at least 2 gallons per 1,000 square foot when I'm using fungicides or insecticides. And that is strictly for product efficacy.
Yeah, so 2 totally different approaches to even getting the material down.
Right. And then what happens should you choose to tank mix propiconazole with methylated seed oil, which is the appropriate surfactant for applying quinclorac? You may most likely see enhanced phytotoxicity and growth regulation out of that propiconazole. Because then you're going to cause that grass to uptake massive amounts of the propiconazole active ingredient.
Yep, that would be my big freak out moment there is, the potential for collateral damage there and it hanging on for a long time is going to be significantly higher than if you ran those in separate applications.
Yeah. And the whole deal with quinclorac is I certainly would not want that drifting off target, knowing how a lot of trees and flowers are sensitive to quinclorac.
Yeah, it starts to mimic some things on that auxin pathway, doesn't it?
That's right. Because in the broadleaf plants, quinclorac has that auxin stimulation mode of action, whereas in grasses, I believe it affects more of the the cell division type of an effect. So it would be what happened if a grass killer and 2,4-D or dicamba got together and had kids. That's the effect of quinclorac, because I see on the quinclorac label, for example, you can use that against ground ivy or clover. And that tells me that it has broadleaf weed activity, right, Matt?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so anything with broadleaf weed activity, I would take special care to keep that spray drift away and off of any kinds of flowers, shrubs, or hedges, or trees. I take special care to make sure that didn't happen, but at the same time, I would never want to apply a fungicide in such a manner that I am not assured total coverage of the area from the leaf all the way down to the thatch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it all comes down to, there's things you can do and there's things you should do. And so technically, if you jar test it and it all mixes together, great. But should you do that? No. And I can tell you, even from my experience as a professional applicator on more like even volume-based lawn care, it was even a big no-no when I was doing it. So if you can work at the pure volume places where it's all about cranking out numbers every day and it's still a big no-no there, I generally would not recommend it. Especially in a limited like situation there. The risk to reward ratio is nowhere near in your favor to even take the risk doing it.
Right. And overall, I mean, I just look at application parameters, surfactants applied, and it's already a bad idea, irregardless of whether it forms a stable jar test. It's just I'm thinking about the actual biological activity of each of the active ingredients long before I think of whether it's compatible physically. It just is like pulling in two different directions.
Yeah, and it kind of takes me into when people are asking about, when I'm running a multiple mode of action tank mix on weeds, how do I know how much of each herbicide do I add? And again, a lot of that comes into just understanding what's actually taking place. What sites within the plant or within the pest are you attacking? Because that's how you determine pretty much which one of each you're going to end up using. And then the other piece of it too is make sure there are no neutralizing interactions between the two, like the one we talked about in high favor today, Acclaim. If you start mixing Acclaim with 2,4-D, goodbye efficacy. And I'm sure there's other mixes out there that fall into that same category. So you got to be careful. You got to study the modes of actions, and you need to make complete and total sense of what it is you're applying before you just get out there haphazardly and do it. And a lot of times it's not even as simple as asking a question like, hey, can I mix these in a tank? Well, there's way more to the equation than just simply you mixing these in a tank, because again, you've got that twofold piece of the puzzle. Yes, physically they will mix together without precipitating out. No, you shouldn't do that for a whole host of reasons.
Yes, there's a long list of reasons why it's a bad idea. And for the listeners, there is one more interaction going back to Acclaim, in that you do not combine that with imazaquin or the sulfonylurea herbicide. Do not.
What happens there? I've never done it, so I don't know.
You'll freaking fry the lawn. Okay? Because there's something about making zoysia detoxify a sulfonylurea while it's trying to also detoxify and resist that fatty acid synthesis inhibitor that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and you will get death. I mean, that's just, and in fact, Image even warns of that. It says do not combine with other grassy weed herbicides with the exception of the triazines or MSMA. It says don't mix.
Well,
so,
yeah, if there's something to take away, those are definitely fungicides and herbicides. Just spray them separately. You can get away with some things like fungicides and fertilizers, but sometimes you just got to be a little more careful on that. Ray, I'm up against a break, and so I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, sir, for tuning in today. And I hope you come back next Monday, same damn time, same damn place, if that works for you.
Oh, yes. And hopefully we don't have to call an emergency session between, say, now and Friday.
You never know what's on the horizon. You never know.
Like last week. I mean, that was a real curveball. Hey, emergency picked the doc's brain, and I'm just surprised that you haven't gotten yet more hate mail on that one, because, like I said, we basically dooed on the, magical supplement industry. We just doo-dooed on that entire industry. We just said, yeah, it is doo-doo and not worth the bottle that it's packaged in.
Well, somehow, some way, we managed to skirt through that without absolutely destroying apparently too many people, because it all worked out. I'm shocked. I really am. I'm shocked. I'm not getting really any feedback from that at all, except for positive stuff.
Right. Well, I'm still waiting for the follow-up video from who's gonna have to attempt to refute all of the basic chemistry that we laid out back on Friday. I know, Matt, you're laughing hard right now.
Yes, I am.
I mean, it's because he's gonna have to refute and prove, for example, that humic and iron and humic and phosphates and humic and calcium do not form insoluble, not immediately available products. I mean, how do you refute that? And how?
I have no idea, Ray. I really don't.
I mean, that's just that's just the problem, is that we don't. You jar tested it. I jar tested it a long time ago, and I decided that if I'm going to use humic, it has to be as a standalone application. And furthermore, you know what I don't like about humic?
What's this?
If I don't have that thing irrigated into the turf immediately after application, there is an extremely high risk that it is going to get tracked onto people's sidewalks, floors, and carpets and make a mess.
Yeah, that is one of the things too. I've definitely seen people run into those scenarios and freak out trying to get it figured out.
Yeah, and so I don't. So for me, I'm not into that whole scenario of just broadcast spraying it all over turf and thinking that is not a potentially high-risk application. There's consequences associated with it, like, hey, black footprints all over somebody's carpet.
No doubt.
Right.
Ray, I'm up against this break. I'm going to have to run, sir, but thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. There it is. The pick, the doc's brain, the one, the only. Right here on Turf's Up Radio. Real quick, I got to take a break. When we come back, come on. We'll get this bad boy closed on out. Right after this.
Eric the Turf Teacher Jones.
Coming up next!
The morning show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. And Keeping Up with Mr. Jones, Mondays at 6 to 8 p.m. Teaching you life lessons, business strategies, and leadership.
Let's Let's grow together. Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turfs Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station. Hey, Turfs Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turfs Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com. Hey, Green Industry Pros, are you new to Turfs Up Radio and want to learn more? Then plug in your earphones and keep listening, because Turfs Up Radio invites you to listen while you work. Our 24/7 live radio platform keeps you up to date, bringing you new tips and interviews from pros like you who want to elevate and educate the green industry. Can't make it to industry shows or events? Don't worry, Turfs Up Radio will be there bringing you live coverage, getting you in on the action. So keep listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
All right. I hope everybody enjoyed that. That was a good time. Actually, let's see here. I've got. Let me see. I've got some information here. Polo, I'll go ahead and get this cranked out right here. Polo sent me a soil test, and the question is, I don't know if my levels are too high as far as my phosphorus. Help me out if you can. pH is 6.5. This was tested early this year. Is there something that I shouldn't do to alter anything? Am I okay with applying phosphorus when I overseed? Any thoughts? So taking a look at it here, the first thing I look at is your phosphorus level, and they claim 96 is really high, which it is on the high side, but I don't know if I would consider that very high. It kind of depends on what your soil test method is, and I do not see that information on this test. So I don't know if it's a Malic 3 or what the case may be, but we'll see there. Then the second piece of it is, are these pounds per acre or are these parts per million on the second piece of this too? It does not tell me if this is ppm or pounds per acre. So I'm going to assume this is parts per million too. We got still pH of 6.5, and we're fairly high in magnesium. So this is what I would do. In this type of scenario, I would go ahead and apply phosphorus, and I would apply about a half pound to 3/4 of a pound, something like that. And the reason why is that if you run 4 pounds of actual phosphorus, 4 pounds of actual nitrogen for the course of the year, you're still in a deficit. You're still going to be reducing your overall phosphorus levels in the soil. Because remember, for every 4 parts nitrogen you apply, the plant is going to require 1 part phosphorus. So if through the course of the year you've applied 4 parts of nitrogen, that means you require a full pound. You apply 4 pounds of nitrogen, you require a full pound of phosphorus. And if you're only applying 3/4 or a half pound, 2 to 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet of whatever, 24, whatever, then you're actually at a phosphorus deficit. Therefore, you're still lowering that soil level. So in my opinion, I would still do it, especially because your magnesium's so high. That's going to be a fast one. So you're probably dealing with some pretty decent amounts of bicarbonates, and also your phosphorus is also going to tie up with that pretty quickly as well. So that would be my recommendation. Now, the other things I see on this is there's not really a whole lot more information on it, to be honest. You got CECs of 16, so you got some clay content in your soil. You got a little bit of zinc, but yeah, I mean, that's really about it. You know, their recommendations here, if I had an organic matter percentage, it might make sense why they recommended 1 to 1.5 pounds of bin. But without it, I don't exactly know why they would make that recommendation. I'm kind of left in the dark on it. So, I don't know how much I would follow their general recommendations, but, yeah, you can get away with doing it if you are feeding it relatively aggressively. And that's assuming, you know, kind of a standard rate of 4 pounds per 1,000, something like that. How about them apples, Polo? How about them apples? There you go. I always enjoy Monday for a multitude of reasons. One, Mondays always tend to slap me right in the face or on the rear end, whichever. More often or not, I get slapped in the face than I do on the rear end on a Monday. Although I would take either. Yes, Kenny, I'll do a soil test rating. Why are you being so goofy about that? And then the next piece of it is that I get to have Doc on with Pick the Doc's Brain. It's always a good time because we get to, no, your soil test is fine. So the more information you need, you could probably dial down to more specifics, but this is fine. Everything we cover there is good. So part 2 is we get to have Pick the Doc's Brain, where we get to dive really deep into the territory of things I like to talk about. And you know, me personally, the things I like to talk about are you know, the squirrely parts of lawn care, the intricacies, the weirdness that goes along with it, the different variables, the different grass types, the different weather types. We get a nice broad spectrum exposure to all of that. And then part number three, after I get off here, someone special comes on. My friend, Eric, the Turf Teacher Jones, is the trifecta for a successful Monday. Whoa. I didn't mean to throw your intro music in there, Stone Cold.
What are you up to, man?
Oh, you know, I'm just out here, you know, trying not to make enemies, just giving people hugs and high fives and telling everybody's going to be A-okay.
Make love, not war.
Yeah, I needed that today. Is everything going to be okay, Eric? Am I going to be okay?
Always, man. Always.
All right, good. I was worried.
It's a Monday, dude. It's the best day of the week. Best day of the week.
I should have called you this morning and been like, Eric, is it the best day of the week?
Hell yeah. Heck yeah, man. Dude, there's only 2 ways to look at it. Like, it's the best day of the week because it's a fresh start. And the other end of the spectrum, man, this might be our last Monday of our life. Yeah. So we gotta just live each day to the fullest, man.
That's right. I have not been looking at my Mondays that way. I need to start doing that. Because you're right. You're right. It's a fresh start, and it could be the last Monday of our life. Boy, that covers your basis.
Yes.
There's not a whole lot of room for in between there. I mean, that is one end to the other.
Yep.
Makes you want to forget everything else that's going on.
I know, dude, but I get stressed out too. And it's like my little girls, they stressed me out around lunchtime today. You know, they were here all day, you know, doing homeschool. I'm trying to work, get paperwork done. And then it's lunchtime and, you know, we have to go to 3 different places to get fast food. And I'm like, you know, girls, you got to make your mind up. You got to make your mind up. I've got to get back to work. And then I'm sitting there thinking, man, I shouldn't even get mad. Who cares? You know, go through 3 drive-through lines. It's not the end of the world. not the end of the world.
I agree, and I know that feeling. I came back in from the office today, and my wife and my son were having quite the heart-to-heart conversation. And I was like, I could walk in there right now, or I could just prance right on back to my home office and hide for a minute.
Yes.
I chose to hide.
Oh yeah. Don't get between Mama when she's ready in that disciplined mood. She's gonna blame you on it. He's acting just like you. He's acting just like you.
You're exactly right, and that's why I was like, I think radio show's starting. I'm gonna go ahead and hide back here.
Hide, man.
Well, everybody at home, thank y'all so much for tuning in today. Stick around because we got Eric the Turf Teacher Jones coming up next, and he's gonna lead you down a whole warm world of deep, just beautiful places. Hugs, hand grenades, and horseshoes, all coming up next. So, sir,
dude, their brains already fried, man. Listening to you,
bring them back up. Bring them back up. All right, sir. The floor is yours.
Clear the halls and get to your class, because your turf teacher is getting ready to call the roll. And if you missed this class, you just aren't keeping up with Mr. Jones. This class is brought to you by Pro Products.
All right, everybody, that's going to be the end of my run, too. Thank you so much for tuning in. Big shout out to Doc. Everybody give a round of applause for Doc and everything he contributed today, each and every Monday as well, too. We thank you all. And I don't know, tomorrow may be the day that we're doing a members only live stream. I don't know. I may need to give it another week or so to kind of get that part built out, but we will see whether or not that's going to become happen just so early. So anyway, I'll keep you posted. I'll throw it up somewhere on the social media front if it is going to happen. So, all right, y'all have a good one.